Hello and welcome to this week's episode of The Unorthodox Vegan. My name is Sean Gold. And this week, episode 44, we are going to make a nacho cheese sauce. Yep, that's what we're going to do. Now, full disclosure, I've made this last week. I made a recipe last week. I'm going to make it again because I used it all up. It was a hit. I took it to two parties, plus I served it to my grandkids, and everybody loved it. Now, I did some variations to the recipe. This is again from the SREG, the Environmental Sustainability Rotary Action Group 15-day plant-rich challenge. I did a few changes to the recipe. So when you go there, you can check it out. It uses milk, and I use or wheat milk or oat milk or anything like that, which is fortified with calcium. I'm using coconut milk, which is not fortified with calcium. So last week's focus was on protein. This week's focus is on calcium. So if I was going to truly make it with the intent, it would be putting in the calcium that would come in the fortified milk. But there is enough calcium in this recipe that we don't really have to fortify it or add too much more. If you do want a really rich calcium meal, you're going to use chickpeas are going to be a major staple that you would use because they're high in calcium as well as protein. So we talked about them last week in the protein stuff, but they're also really high in calcium. Another thing that's fairly high in calcium is nutritional yeast. Just the way it's made and it's how it's produced. It's got lots of it, and that's going to be in this recipe as well. Other things that have calcium are going to be the brown rice. I'll be using that. Now in the recipe it calls for an oat rice or some other, I think it says oat flour. I'm going to be using a brown rice flour, and it's just a couple of tablespoons, but that has a fairly high amount of calcium in it. And of course, there's lots of calcium in tofu, but we're not going to be using tofu in this recipe. Don't need to. Don't figure I need to. Anyway, so all the things I've got here, I have got the main ingredients are going to be coconut milk. I'm going to be using chickpeas. I have nutritional yeast. Those are the main components. A little bit of vegan butter and a little bit of brown rice. And we're going to be putting in some jalapeno peppers. And these have been roasted, so I'll be doing that. And I'm going to be putting a little bit of hot sauce just to give it a little extra flavor in that side. I like that. The last time I made it, last week, I made it with just a hot sauce. I didn't have the jalapeno peppers. So I'm going to do the jalapeno peppers and a little bit of hot sauce. We'll see how that works. And we're going to put some chipotle powder. It says chili powder. I don't have any chili powder. Actually, I do, but I can't find it. Anyway, I have lots of chipotle powder. I'll do that. Some smoked paprika, some garlic, a little bit of salt, some turmeric. I think that's all I'm going to be putting in there. Normally, I would serve this on a bed of taco chips or nacho chips, whatever you call them. And I used them all up. And in the last 2 days, I've had so much of this. I thought, well, let's just do it on something a little more healthy. So I just blanched some cauliflower. So I'm going to be putting it on the blanched cauliflower and just serving it like that. And on top of it, I will be adding a little bit of diced tomatoes, which I've already diced. This is just some leftovers from what I had on the party, and a mix of meat and onions and mushrooms. And this is just fried up. The meat is an Eve's, what's it called? Lean ground. They're lean ground, just a non-flavored lean ground. I mixed it up. I've cooked it up with, I fried it up with some onions and mushrooms, cremini mushrooms. And so I'll be putting that on top. I'll put the cheese on top of the cauliflower, and then sprinkling on some of that meat dish and the tomatoes, and we'll just do a taste test and see how it all works out. Okay, so this is all that's included, and I'm going to be putting all of this into a blender, and it's all going to get blended, and that's how it's all going to work. I'm using a full, what is this going to be? A full 400 milliliter can of coconut milk, but this is a very high concentration of fat. So it's got 16 grams, I think, of fat in it. 21% of this one is, so it's a fairly high fat content. I like that just because it makes it rich and thick. I'm going to be using a full can of chickpeas. Be draining the liquid off, though. I don't need that liquid. I'll save it for other things in the future. I will be using, let's see, how much nutritional yeast? 1/2 cup of nutritional yeast and 2 tablespoons of this brown rice flour. And then the rest is just, and a 1/4 cup, make sure I got that, a 1/4 cup of the butter of this margarine, vegan margarine. So that's what I'll be using. And then a little bit of flavoring, just some spices, putting in like a 1/2 teaspoon or 1/4 teaspoon of that, of each of those, and maybe 1/8 of a teaspoon of the turmeric, and a couple of tablespoons of, just checking the recipe here. No, it's only a 1/2 teaspoon of lemon juice. So there's not a lot of lemon juice. Not even sure what that's for. And I will be putting in a little bit of cumin. I just realized I don't have it there. So I'm just going to be opening up some cans, getting everything organized, put it into the blender, move the camera around a little bit so you can see what's going on, and be back in a bit. As you can see, I have loaded everything up into that blender, so everything is ready to go. And I just didn't tell you what some of the amounts of some of those ingredients were. And it was, all of the spices were either 1/8 of a teaspoon, 1/4 of a teaspoon, and the only ones that were 1/2 a teaspoon was the big one, which was the lemon juice. I don't know why that was only a 1/2 a teaspoon, but that's what it was. The bigger ingredients, I already told you what those were. So those are all in there. Now, I watched the video, the SREG Environmental Sustainability Rotary Action Group website that has that the plant-rich diet challenge for this specific episode 7. It talks about calcium, and for this specific recipe has a video. And the video was done by whoever created that recipe, and it is hilarious. The guy has got a very dry sense of humor. But one of the things he does say is make sure that you put the powders in before you put in all of the liquid. So I've got the milk in afterwards, because when you go to turn on the blender, it is going to it will throw some of those dust or the stuff up in the air. And if you're using chili powders and other things that are very difficult to breathe when you get those the powder in the air, it's fun to watch. Anyway, so I'm just going to put this thing onto a pulse mode. I think it's on pulse, and maybe it's even just going to be manual. I'm not sure about this blender. I got this one as a used one, so I'm going to check it out. So let's see how it goes. I'm just going to pulse it a little bit first to break it up, and then go into get it nice and rich and creamy. Okay, we have now made that nacho cheese sauce. Okay, so take a look at that. That's nice and rich and thick, and it smells delicious. We're going to go and do a taste test in a few minutes. I'm just going to clean up a little bit here, bring over the cauliflower that I had blanched, and then put on some of the put on the cheese, put on the what is this thing? The hamburger with the onion and mushrooms in it, and some tomatoes on top, and then we'll give it a taste test. Back in a minute. Well, as you can see, I made a lot of cheese sauce. So that's a lot of that nacho cheese sauce. Great for all kinds of things. So I'm going to save that, put that in the fridge. It'll thicken up a lot, and you can use it. It stays in the fridge at least a week, and I had no problem with that, and it was just delicious. So I have covered the cauliflower with that cheese. I sprinkled on some of that mix of hamburger meat with mushrooms and onions. And I also put on some tomatoes, and we're going to just cut up tomatoes. Now, if you're going to use nacho chips, and I also had some red onions and stuff like that I've been using, but gosh, that's just, I've had enough of that for now. So I'm just going to take a little bit of this and do a taste test. Put it on that plate there. Get a little bit more of that meat in there and a little bit more of that cheese. We're going to see what this tastes like. All right, let's get that look, get that camera right. All right, so here we go. Here's a little bit of the cauliflower with a little bit of mushroom, tomato, and lots of cheese sauce on it. That cheese is so nice and rich. It's got a nice little bite to it. With the cauliflower, actually tempers the heat. Yeah, it's pretty nice. So I put in about, in addition to the, I don't know, 2 or 3 roasted, diced jalapeno peppers, I put in about 2 tablespoons of Frank's hot sauce. I did their buffalo hot sauce and like that one. So it's a fair amount of hot sauce. Plus, of course, I put in some of the spices, which included at least a half a teaspoon of chipotle powder. So it's all good. This is nice. Best to be served warm. It's at room temperature for the most part. Best to be served warm. Um, if you want to get that extra heat, if you're doing it on veggies, on nacho chips, you can heat that up as well. I did heat it up in the microwave when I did the nacho chips. It was great. Oh, now I'm getting a little bit of the burn. Oh, this is so good. The kids loved it. All my guests loved it. The two parties I was at. So I think it's a hit. It's a nacho cheese sauce. And that is episode 44 of the Unorthodox Vegan. Again, my name is Sean Gold. If you want to reach me, you can reach me on my email address up here. Let's put it up there. That's vrcompanions@gmail.com. And please follow me on my YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/@ the_unorthodox_vegan. And if you'd like more information about making these meals and any of the other meals that are offered in the 15-day plant-rich diet from SRAG, please contact srag.org. That's ESRAG, Environmental Sustainability Rotary Action Group.org. Until next time, have yourself a great day.